So it's just by way of introductions for you, Harry. It says your title here is Director of Operations Strategy and Enablement at Tangerine Bank. But
Catchy.
It is catchy.
Yeah.
But that's not the real Harry Clapham that I know. I know a different Harry Clapham, which is the prolific goal scorer for the Tangerine hockey team power forward, this guy. I thought you could use this opportunity to share your accomplishments.
I've played for 2 years. The first time I played was about my third time on ice, so you can imagine how much of a lie that one is.
But you guys beat the Accenture team, which for me means a lot. I'm an ex-IBMer, so
I've
that's a big deal.
Good teammates.
There you go.
I grew up on grass. The ice, it's just so slippery.
Yeah, you're a Wimbledon guy. Yeah. Anyway, so we're here to talk about your role at Tangerine and the work that you're doing there to build out an AI roadmap for Tangerine. How many people here, show of hands, are thinking about are building an AI roadmap or are impacted by an AI roadmap at your company? Show of hands. Okay, there's no surprise there. We have been talking about AI during the conference, so it's a very pertinent topic, I think, for a lot of the folks in this room. The thing about Tangerine is you guys are, I mean, arguably you're quite way ahead of the game. You've 13 years in a row you've won Best Digital Bank in Canada for midsize. Forbes just awarded you #1 bank in Canada for 2025, I think. So like a long list of accomplishments. Like, why is this now a focus? Like, why now for AI roadmap at Tangerine?
Yeah, so I think just brief introduction to Tangerine for those of you who don't know. Scotiabank is our parent company. We're a subsidiary. They acquired ING Direct back in 2012, and in 2014 we were rebranded Tangerine. I'm not sure many people realize we're right behind the big five in terms of deposits, but we're not one of the big five. We're not one of the new kids on the block. We kind of sit somewhere in between, which I think is a really nice position for us in that we've got trust of a very loyal customer base, but we have the agility of some of the smaller players in the market. Our customer base is 90% digitally active, which is really high. I think if you look at the rest of the financial services industry, you're going to be looking more towards the 75, 78% mark. Our clients tell us what they want. They join us, they want to bank digitally, they expect innovation, they expect more capabilities in the palm of their hand, and that's what the challenge is that we've risen to. Regardless of Tangerine, I think more broadly, this is the biggest tipping point that we're at in terms of AI. You look at all the major stakeholder groups, and it's like they're embracing it. They're not only embracing it, they're expecting it. There's a couple of stats I came across recently which really kind of hit me between the eyes. 47% of all consumers now feel comfortable and confident using AI to influence their choices around products and services. And 51% of consumers would rather interact with AI than wait for a human. So I think if you're not thinking about this already, your clients are actually demanding that you start thinking about bringing AI towards your service proposition. We work with vendors like Max and ASAP. I think that vendor stakeholder group is really maturing now. I think really importantly, they're starting to build a backlog and a track record of success, which is really important to build confidence internally for me. When I say, hey, we might want to partner with ASAP, here's a list of the major organizations they've already had great success with. Internally, my executives are definitely embracing AI, and I think we saw a pretty hefty hand raise in the room here. That's consistent with 75% of CX leaders now believing that AI can amplify the power of humans. And I love that it's being talked about side by side with humans. That's a really important point we'll possibly come back to. So you look across all these stakeholder groups, I think I've reflected on it, and I think the tipping point has arrived where the fear of doing nothing is now greater than the fear of doing something with AI.
Yeah, for sure. And you've said to me in the past that like AI is not a strategy. So I wonder, like Tangerine's already pretty ahead of the game. It's already a largely digital bank, 90% digital interaction, you said. So like if you look out, like let's talk about the vision. We know AI is a part of that roadmap, but if you look 3 to 5 years out, the Tangerine client experience, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What are you solving for there?
It will look very different. Let's just start with that. I'm the person within the organization who gets people excited about AI, but in my most brutal moments, I will remind people that it is a means to an end. AI is not an end in itself. It's how we get there. It's a pretty cool way of how we get there, but still, it's a technology at the end of the day. I think that the strategy that we invested time in, we didn't start the conversation with AI. I think you've heard other people today mention that. Don't change the approach that you already have today. So what is that North Star vision? Who do you want to be? So establish through that strategy, the what and the why. And then when you kind of get the alignment and the buy-in to that, which is what I did last year with a cross-functional group, we did a number of iterations until we were all happy that this is what we're going for. Then you move into the strategic planning, and that's where you know that AI will come into the conversation. So start with that strategy, AI will naturally come. And I think a key takeaway from this is focus on the outcome. If AI is the best way of getting there, by all means embrace AI. If it's not, don't force it. That's what we started with.
So it will be a microchip in my head that tells me don't buy that second croissant. that will be there. So when you think about, okay, like we know that AI is going to be a part, we know that's a significant pillar in the vision. How do you kind of figure out where to start, right? You are largely a digital bank, which means they have no branches, so no physical branches. So that allows you to engage with customers digitally. But how do you decide kind of what that? So you have a 3-year roadmap. I think to make a 5-year roadmap these days seems like that's a little bit too far. It's a bit of a stretch. So, okay, in years 1 and 2, how do you think about where do I move the Lego pieces? Where do I start? What channels? What journeys? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so we took the conversation from this is where we want to be to from where are we now and how are we going to get there? And so it's like engaging with ASAP and other vendors. I'll do you a favor, I won't name those. We'll stick to ASAP for now.
Some bigger guys.
Yeah, maybe slightly bigger. Bring those voices in. They are happy to chat to you. There's probably capabilities out there that you're not aware of, and just share with them your problem statements. We're here. This is a real pain point. We're trying to get from A to B. What do you propose? Do you have any ideas? And there was so many voices that kind of fed into our strategic plan. And AI is prominent. It does run through a lot of aspects of our strategy, moving in a 2 to 3 year basis. When I think of the AI use cases, so let's say we have the medium-long list, there's kind of 4 aspects that I keep in mind. 2 of them will typically be within your business case. So what's the effort, the time, resource, cost to implement this AI solution? What's the scalability or impact? So what's the return on investment? Those 2 you probably cover anyway. There's 2 others now that I also keep in mind. One is the technology readiness. So if you're looking to kind of go 5 steps ahead of the competition and adopt this thing that's really amazing, but no one else has it and it's untested, the model has questions around it, perhaps you're going to come up against some resistance internally around that one, and that one might not be for the now, it might be for step 2, step 3. And then final step is the operational readiness. So is your organization set up from a skill standpoint, a data standpoint, a tech standpoint to adopt this AI solution? If it's not, you're likely to bring in a capability that you just can't commercialize. And then there's an overall sequencing. So if I use the example of our partnership, we're really looking to ramp up the capabilities in the chat channel. So we deliberately started with an NLP chatbot. It's FAQ, it's not generative, but it's pretty effective in fielding the simple stuff. And we're really proud that it's above 50% containment. So 50% of the interactions the bot retains, and it doesn't direct the client to the telephony channel, which is brilliant. We deliberately had that as a first step, so then we have the container, we can chat with our clients, we can quickly build intelligence around what are the moments where clients are having problems, why are they asking us questions, what do those questions look like, and then we can bring in humans into the channel. We know, based on that data, how many staff we're going to need, what are the types of queries, what skill sets we might want to place in that channel. And then the third step, which it would have been possibly tempting to jump ahead to, is the generative agent, so virtual agents. So we're talking about agentic AI here. It's conversational. It's coming up with bespoke responses. And the fact we already have the humans in the channel means that is very easy for us to build a model where you have the agentic AI fielding most client queries, but you've got the humans in the channel already, and they can do what's called humans in the loop. So we'll define criteria. What are the discretion points or decision points? The generative AI agent needs to link to a human for that decision point. And then we can scale the channel really nicely.
Yeah. Okay, there was a lot there. You talked about operational readiness, and then you talked about, okay, there's some agentic AI that's dialoguing with the customer and performing transactions, but there's a human in the loop component, and then you're thinking also about some of the skills that you need to hire to make sure that folks are trained. I want to come back to that, but just in terms of where you started with ASAP, you deployed, initially you didn't have mobile app, a way to engage with your engagement center, your contact center in your mobile apps. And so ASAP started there in deploying a chatbot in the mobile app, and eventually one day, hopefully fingers crossed, we'll make it generative one day soon. But maybe just talk a little bit about your process of choosing an AI partner like ASAP. What were the key factors that went into that decision?
It's a really important decision, first of all, and I know the term RFP, sends shiver down people's spines. It can take a number of months, right? But
RFI is okay.
Your vendors ASAP's service that they provide to our clients, if there's any problems with it, there's no real repercussions for ASAP. It's going to come back to Tangerine. It's our chat channel, it's our service. So you're extending your trust to a vendor to ensure that you're providing continuous and innovative service to your clients. So it's not a decision that we took lightly. But from a practitioner's point of view, we didn't take the same solution as our parent company, Scotia, and there were good reasons for that. They're a bigger organization. They have the luxury of data scientists, engineers, conversational managers. Tangerine's a smaller outfit. So there was a number of factors that were really important for me for the here and now, and that was accessibility, so post-implementation. Can I maintain my multiple touch points throughout the week? And ASAP have really done well to honor that. That might be a challenge with a bigger size vendor. The second was the agility. So I didn't have a massive team, but now I run our chat channel with about 4 full-time staff. They can make changes to the content and the flows within the bot without going to ASAP to make the changes for us. So I think that's really important to consider, particularly if you're smaller. And then finally was the out-of-the-box reporting. So I didn't have data scientists, as I mentioned, so the stuff that we saw coming out of the channel had to be real-time, it had to be no issues, and it had to be content I could tailor both to like a root cause analysis exercise, so going into the raw data, but also something that I had in my fingertips that would serve as an executive update, and that's exactly what I've got. So those considerations went in for the initial solution, which is different for other organizations. So I think a couple of examples for things to keep in mind for you guys. But there was a longer term strategic consideration as well. I think where your vendors can really add value is agitating that roadmap. So where do we see ourselves 2-3 years time? Max and ASAP do a great job of that. He spent an untold amount of time in our office and in Toronto with our execs, not only talking about the solutions we're executing over the next kind of 12 months, but where could we layer on additional capabilities? What does that mean for our customers? Like that's what we're here for. What can our customers achieve with this kind of capability? And those external voices just add validity to your strategy. It makes the internal fight a lot easier.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. I appreciate also the point about the product, the long-term vision, the generative, the human in the loop, all the fancy stuff. But you can't forget about reporting. If you don't have real-time, highly accurate reporting, what kind of visibility do you have into what is otherwise a black box of AI talking to your customers? So definitely a consideration for those of you who are looking for an AI partner. Think about what's the reporting? Is it real time? Do I have tooling? How do I fine tune the experience and control and staff accordingly? And speaking of which, I want to come back to that operational readiness point. As you introduce AI into the organization, you're kind of changing the profile of how you staff some of the phone teams, the chat teams, this human in the loop concept. How many people are thinking about, show of hands, like changing the org design for the contact center folks, the staff, the supervisors? How many folks are thinking about that? All right, a healthy handful there. So how are you thinking about the enablement side of that, the hiring side of that? What does that look like?
Yeah, what I'm really trying to maintain is a growth mindset as we bring in AI. I think one of the slides just before lunch mentioned that cost to serve driver, which some executives may or may not drive. If you bring in AI and then just bank all of that savings by removing headcount, I think that's a missed opportunity in my mind. So for me, I'm keeping the growth mindset. With that freed up capacity, what can we do instead? Can we have more relationship-based conversations? Can we have more personal advice going on in the contact center? Right now, we're reasonably reactive. We deal with the query as quickly as we can. We have measures like average handling time, average seconds to answer, which you're probably all familiar with. I think it's going to really change how we measure the contact center. For me, I will be comfortable with longer handling times if those conversations are more valuable. And you start thinking about your customer service teams as revenue drivers rather than a cost center. Some of you may have seen the example of Klarna in the news, so the buy now, pay later. They had this great declaration recently that they're no longer hiring humans and hiring AI.
Yeah.
And they've had to do a bit of an embarrassing U-turn on that because they went too far.
How many people know about that U-turn, by the way? Have people seen that? They did the whole like fully automation, and then never mind, we're not doing that anymore.
They realized without sufficient human oversight, which I think, AI is not where it will be in a number of years' time, but right now you still need that human oversight, and they'd lost too much of that, and the quality of their output had dropped, so now they're hiring humans again. Back to the point, AI plus humans really supercharges your workforce.
Okay, so then the human oversight at Tangerine for the moments that matter, which you mentioned, like what does that look like? Is that referrals to wealth? Is that additional services in Tangerine? Is that like what are those use cases, the moments that matter?
I don't have an answer for 2 years down the line. We have all of this capability, and what does that mean for the interactions that are left with human to human in the telephony channel? I will use data, and I'll let the clients tell me what that looks like, and it might be very different by client. What I do know is that right now it's a cost center. It will bring much more value to the clients' lives and to Tangerine in the future state with the types of conversations they have. You could speculate it's reserved for more advice, more complex problems, that nervous younger person who's perhaps buying a home for the first time, or it may not. Some clients will go for that, some will not. I think one of the big changes, the big shifts we've seen internally, actually, in the shorter term, is around the internal stakeholder engagement.
Yeah.
I think everybody should be ready for that journey. I think if you go into a room and present, you've got your strategy, and now here's AI. That's how it's going to get us there. Don't expect everybody just to lap it up, right? There's going to be different levels of enthusiasm, understanding, apprehension. And so we've been on a journey, but I think one of the key pieces there is collaboration and transparency and early collaboration, particularly with those risk stakeholders. I've actually proudly introduced our risk stakeholders directly to Max and team to cut out the middleman, right? They can voice their concerns. Max and his tech team can kind of answer those concerns. The takeaways are kind of between the two key parties there. I think my challenge to you would be, if you've got a nervousness about that introduction, then do you have nervousness about your vendor? And do you have nervousness about your stakeholders internally? Are they there to protect you, or are they there to prevent you? So I would agitate that a little bit. It will help you. And we leverage Scotiabank's expertise as well. So all of our AI use cases are delivered within the enterprise AI governance framework. The models are tested, the assumptions are shared. There's chance for us to have input and tweak those models and really just protect everyone, protect ourselves as a bank, protect the clients, protect our reputation. So that early collaboration is really important. More broadly, I came across a good resource, actually. I read a book last year called Big Bets, Making Large-Scale Change Happen. And it's written by Dr. Rajiv Shah. He's the president of the Rockefeller Foundation. And it's an inspiring book. Some of his change is far more admirable than what I'm looking to achieve. But he kind of highlighted 3 steps. So when there's apprehension or resistance in the room, number 1 is active listening. Really deeply understand the concerns of your stakeholders. And when you are seen to be actively listening and deeply understanding their concerns, you start to build trust. The second step is challenge with empathy. I really love that, and I use that myself as part of this AI conversation. So what you do is you reflect the concerns of your stakeholders. You actually play them back to them, and it changes the positioning of the narrative. So perhaps you've been focusing too much on the return on investment, where you should have been, or you could have been talking more around mitigants of risk. Perhaps you were talking a bit more internally facing, when you could have been talking more about what the competition are doing and how there's a risk of doing nothing. So don't assume the message that's going to land. Mirror those concerns. And then the final step is collaboration. We've been talking about it right the way through. Don't own all of those problems yourselves. Your coworkers are there to protect you. And the greater collaboration that you have, the greater the buy-in, and the more chance you've got of influencing those internal stakeholders. So I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was a great read, and it's really helped those internal conversations.
Yeah. I mean, especially those risk partners. I mean, you operate in an incredibly regulated environment. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with the likes of OSFI, regulatory exams from the FCAC. So, that obviously when you're thinking about deploying technology that's customer facing or even agent facing, it's a significant consideration for you. You talked about transparency. Any tips for those in the room who are also in regulatory spaces that need to figure out how to partner with those risk folks on how to bring them in the tent with you?
Absolutely, and I'm delighted to see the likes of OSFI and FCAC embrace AI now, and they're advocating for the adoption of responsible AI. There's more guidance and frameworks out there. Again, I leverage the experts in Scotia. I'm not a risk guy. I'm an operations person. I focus on the business outcomes. Your risk counterparts will collaborate with those external regulators, and I think that's a really, really healthy way to do things. Transparency around what you're looking to achieve. Clarity around the risks and how you're going to avoid those risks as well.
Yeah.
But I see a shift. I see a bit more of an openness to adopting AI, certainly in the financial
So you are
services.
seeing attitudes change. Folks a little bit more open-minded, but also educated about the kind
You
of tech.
look around at the progress the banks are making. I think there's leaps and bounds going on, and we're talking about some pretty exciting stuff. And we can only do that with regulatory blessing in banking.
Yeah, and that's actually a great insight. Is that I think as I've worked with you over the past years, it's been a little over a year, believe it or not.
That's
You and I
really-
met in April
gosh.
of 24, which is
Gosh.
kind of wild. But one of the great insights you had is let me look at my competitors, my peers in the industry, and understand what are they doing as it relates to AI, and that really helps your conversations with some of your risk
Not
partners.
just Canada. Look outside of Canada. So, I got to be careful what I say because I'm clearly not from around here, but Canada is not the most innovative AI embracing market in the world. We've done studies in the UK. You look at the UK banking industry, it's far more competitive. There's a lot more neobanks over there, so I would encourage you. Maybe you get a trip out of it. Look outside of Canada and be ambitious. Go for world-class service, not just Canada leading service.
Yeah. CXS Maldives next year. Let's talk about results, business results. So we have been live with the virtual agent, which we're still expanding, but since I think February, early February, so it's now almost 4 months. Talk to us about some of the results that you've seen from the wider AI deployment. And I'm also curious if there are new KPIs, like we're in a kind of a new world, a rapidly changing world, where we're starting to reevaluate some of the metrics that matter. There was an earlier panelist that talked about, am I measuring the KPI from the customer standpoint? So I'm curious if you've seen any changes to the KPIs you're looking at and what results you've seen so far that you're excited about or not so excited about.
Yeah, I think a really, really good piece of insight is just how effective AI is becoming in that language recognition. So from free format inputs from clients, and can be voice or type, we're seeing 91% recognition. So the AI understands 91% or more of what the client is trying to achieve and presents the right information. That's been a fantastic development and really important as well. I think in the course of a very short amount of time, what I've seen just a few years back, clients would type in keywords. It was almost like they knew they were talking to something of limited capacity, so they'd just type in deposit check or open account. Now they just type away in full conversation, particularly the French speakers. So the AI recognition of that free language has really come on leaps and bounds, but I think it's really important because client expectations has changed.
Meaning like no longer agent. I can now
Exactly.
trust that the system will know how to respond.
Correct, yeah. So really, really strong performance there.
Right.
We're seeing percentages go up. So I think recently enough, you could expect an NLP bot to contain, if you contain 40% of chats, that was pretty strong. Now we're edging towards 60%. So again, it shows how these tools are improving all the time. We also have a capability which is an Ask AI tool internally, which helps our both head office and agents simply locate the information they're looking for. We're seeing over 90% accuracy in those results. So much so that we've had the agreement to move towards a generative AI version of that, where not only does it retrieve the information, but it will synthesize a bespoke response that the agent can then relay to clients. And that's going really well. We're seeing over 80% adoption from agents. Looking up articles is nowhere near 80%, but now they know it's there and that they're not going to have to read through 5 articles and find the right piece. The adoption of that is much higher, and I think from a conduct standpoint, now we've got greater adoption of our help articles. We can have a lot more control over the accuracy of those conversations and write first time for clients. So
Totally.
win-win.
Totally. I want to come to the audience in just a moment in case anyone has any questions for Harry, so just think about that for a moment. I did want to come back to, so you're working on this, let's say, 2 to 3 year roadmap for transformation with AI at Tangerine. How does it change the bank's position in the market relative to its peers? Like, what happens to Tangerine? Like, why is this strategy an essential part of Tangerine's strategy? What does that look like?
We want to grow, and one of the messages I focused on was what's the result if we do nothing? So if we hit our growth aspirations on client growth, but did no investment in these AI capabilities, we would have had to add $21 million in additional direct costs. That means putting more and more people on the phones. So I think without this conversation, we just can't hit our top line OKRs. But back to what I said, I think the combination of AI and humans is the secret. In a pessimistic view, you could say that AI is almost going to commoditize customer service. So I think the value and the leap ahead will be how humans interact with AI. I've painted the picture to my agents, and so I have to deliver on it now. And it's imagine a conversation with a client who you're really struggling to understand, but you've got all that conversation live transcript on one side of your screen. It's automatically linking into the help database, so you know you've got real-time offers popping up. You know everything about that client. The fact they did just get a new dog last week, and then predictive insights and opportunities for them as well. Imagine how empowered that agent feels and how much they would enjoy their job, and I'm sure how much the client would enjoy that experience.
Yeah. Last question for you. Clearly, you're a change agent. It's exciting even to imagine that experience that you just described. I have a personal financial concierge, so that's very exciting. There are change agents in this room. 2 key pieces of advice for them as they try to make change in their organizations.
Just get excited. Like this is an incredible moment in time. I think we'll look back at the end of our careers and say we were all in seats of influence when AI came along. I think it's the biggest technology revolution that we've ever seen. It sounds dramatic, but I really believe that. So get excited. This sounds counterintuitive. If the overriding emotion within your organization is not excitement, don't try and change it with excitement. It won't work. You're going to have to bring the data and the evidence, but get excited. This is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Fantastic. Maybe we have time for 1 or 2 questions if folks have them for Harry here. We see one over here, please.
Hi, Harry. Thanks for joining us. Quick question. What are the bias variance trade-offs that you're making when you choose what AI path you guys are working towards?
What are the what, sorry?
Bias variance? Any trade-offs that you're working through?
When we select a use case?
Yeah, for your AI path.
Yeah, I think some of the existing methods you might factor in terms of the effort and the impact. So there were a few use cases we went with, which were just low-hanging fruit. So existing contracts we could bring in additional AI capabilities, and we knew it resolved a pretty easy client issue. And I think there is patience to be had with this. So I say kind of patient persistence is the approach I try to take. It doesn't always stay that way. But the more examples of effective AI, the more momentum I can build internally. So I guess that's a bias I deploy. I don't know if you have anything from other clients you work with.
No, I think, by the way, the question is directed at bias in AI and responsible AI. I think at least ASAP as an AI provider, we think a lot about that, about ensuring that our models are not biased, and that things that are out of scope should be out of scope. Decisions that are made are weighed carefully and given confirmation so that they're not just transactions that are taken that really shouldn't be taken because of a biased decision-making process. So it's very much a part of how one orchestrates an AI system. Maybe one last question, if we don't get the cane. Yes. You can project. You can go ahead.
Like what type of governance and controls that you have in place to ensure
Oh.
I have to stand.
Hey, you're done. We can see you.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm just wondering what type of governance and controls that you have in place when you implement your, agentic AI solution?
Yeah. Part of this answer might address your question slightly better than what I just said. I misunderstood that, sorry. I think the teams have done a great job in embedding AI into existing processes, so risk screeners at the start of the process, really proactively and early, given an early understanding of where there may or may not be risks when we're talking about an AI solution. We also have the model review from a risk standpoint. So there we look at what are the assumptions it takes into place. This review ensures that there's transparency, accuracy, and ethics. So this will factor in any bias that we perceive. And again, that goes through. It's not just kind of a here's your solution, kind of like it or lump it. There is an opportunity to input in that. We have feedback loops. There's a number of iterations. There's key sign-off parties in there based on the risk. So I think it's an important one, given there may be kind of a bit of a learning curve going on internally, that we've got that model review in place. And then more broadly under the bank's risk structure, so the enterprise AI risk framework governs all of our use cases. And again, leveraging the stakeholders over at Scotia who work with the regulators. I don't need to be an expert in that. I've got people who I work with, which is great.
And if you don't know what controls you need in place, get the risk partners in your first meeting so that they're there for the POC. That would be my suggestion. Anyway, Harry, thank you. This has been awesome.
Great
it's
to
been
see
a
you.
pleasure. Thank you so much.